right now, he's not seeing things with clarity right now. He's uncomfortable in the pocket. The elimination process and the isolation process of where to go with the ball is not registering the way it should.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. That's because it is a teaching tutorial Thursday presented by DraftKings. That means our guy, Greg Cosell, the civilian GOAT from NFL Films, is in the house. And we've got no buys and a lot of games to get to. So we'll get to Greg momentarily. I will let you know, however, that tomorrow already I'll be giving out winners. Those of you that spread the word via social media, could be as easy as replying or quote posting or whatever on any social platform at Ross Tucker Pod. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. Or posting your Spotify Wrapped, showing how much you listen to us. There's a lot of ways. Rating and reviewing the show. Your best bet's to email me, ross@rosstucker.com, so I see it. Same with when you take advantage of any of our awesome sponsors, future fans, westshorehome.com/Ross. Love them, love them, love them. YouTube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. We grow quickly by the week over on YouTube. Love getting the comments. Love rewarding one commenter every week with a personalized video to whomever or for whatever you'd like. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
Greg Cosell is presented by Smirnoff, the world's #1 vodka. Please drink responsibly. Greg, a lot to get to, so let's dive right into it. Let's start with tonight's game. I know you love matchups like this from a coaching perspective. It's a Shanahan game. It's Sean McVay against Kyle Shanahan, and there is a lot on the line for both these teams tonight.
Yeah, I mean, last week I thought that Kyle Shanahan against that Bears defense just put on a master clinic of understanding exactly what he was getting from the zone coverage concepts that the Bears played, and he just ate them up with his route concepts. And Purdy probably looked as efficient as he's looked since the beginning of the season. Obviously, these teams know each other. The last time they played was week 3. They're totally different because a lot of players were not playing in those games. When you look at the Rams offense, I don't think there's a lot of mystery there. It's just they're difficult to defend. I mean, you're defending play action under center. You're defending motion. You're defending reduced splits. You're defending receivers getting free access. The 49ers are a predominant zone team, so McVay will have a very, very good feel of how to attack those zone coverage concepts. And the 49ers are going back to Jair Brown, who got benched last week. They played Mustafa and Hufang at safety, but Mustafa is not going to play tonight, so obviously they're playing a safety that they did not feel was playing up to the necessary level. So that becomes a factor as well, because I thought one of the issues Brown had and why he was probably benched was just his eye discipline and his recognition and reaction to what he was seeing. So this is a really intriguing matchup with two very, very fun offenses to watch.
I was very disappointed by Jair Brown against the Bills in that snow game.
Yeah.
I mean, the angles he took, it didn't even look like at times he was even trying to get off blocks from like Matt Collins and the receivers. Very, very disappointing, especially because, I know it's snowing, but he's a Pittsburgh kid that went to Lackawanna in Northeast PA and then went to Penn State. That should not be a problem for him. What about the Cowboys and Carolina? I know you watch every snap of the Eagles, Greg. I got to tell you, I came away very impressed by Bryce Young. That looked to me like Alabama Bryce Young. The Eagles could not get him down. Like, they could not. And that was what he did at Alabama, Greg. He just kind of finds a way to find the space and buy the time and throw the ball. I don't know why he wasn't doing that the whole time.
Yeah, but I think you have to be a little careful about that, Ross. I mean, and I like Bryce Young a lot, but, I think that when you play that way, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't because there's a random element to that kind of movement. I mean, it's not structured. So sometimes it works out really well and sometimes it doesn't. Now, you could also argue they should have won the game because Leggett dropped that, what should have been an easy catch for a touchdown late in the game with less than a minute to go. But, I thought that the Eagles defense probably was not quite as good in that game overall. And I think the player that I think says everything you need to know, and it's got to be a concern for them going forward, is Jordan Davis. Because on that final drive by the Panthers, they got the ball with 2 minutes and 58 seconds to go, okay? They're down 6. Obviously, it's a passing situation, and you're the Eagles, and you're playing your pass rush group. Well, Jordan Davis did not play one snap in that final drive. And again, they traded up and drafted him 13th. You would expect him to be out there at least for some of those plays. So, that has to be a concern for them going forward.
Yeah, he's just not that. He's just not a pass rusher. He's not that kind of guy. And I don't think at this point, when you get to year 3, Greg, I think I'm not saying you can't still improve, but I don't think there's going to be like a big leap for him.
I agree. I think
rusher. Players
pretty much declare what they are by year 3.
I think so. We've seen D linemen year 2, year 3. It's the end of year 3 now. I think if he was going to give them more as a pass rusher, he probably already would have. I just don't think that's going to be his deal. I would just say, Greg, I thought the floor was being one of the best run stuffers in the NFL.
And he's not.
I'm not sure he's even that.
He's not. And that's the concern. If he was dominant on the inside as a run stuffer, you could say that, hey, it's still a good pick and he has an impact, particularly in a league where the running game is coming back. But he's not even that.
No, I did a Titans game, so I watched them. Tavondre Sweat is already better than Jordan Davis, and Tavondre Sweat is kind of like what I think the Eagles thought they were getting at a minimum in Jordan Davis.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I watch every Titans game because I do radio down there, but you're right. He's better than Jordan Davis right now.
Let's go Dolphins, Texans. We got a bunch of sneaky, juicy games this week, Greg. Dolphins trying to stay alive here against the Texans coming off the bye.
Yeah, and I think, it's funny. We all like C.J. Stroud. That's not the point. But, every player can continue to improve, particularly quarterbacks, because he's only in his second season. And clearly their offensive line this season was not as good as it was in his rookie season when he was very, very comfortable in the pocket. But that becomes the next step in a quarterback's development, particularly a quarterback who at his core is a pocket passer. You have to learn how to play when everything is not pristine. Because as you know, Ross, you played offensive line. Not every week is the offensive line going to give quarterbacks just a totally clean, secure pocket. It's the NFL. The players you're playing against on the defensive line with the blitz schemes that exist now in the league, they're so multiple and they're so advanced. Quarterbacks have to learn how to function in noisy, muddied pockets when the pocket is squeezed. And I think that's one of the next steps in his development. It's easy to watch on TV and say, oh, it's a bad O-line, he's under pressure. You know what? That happens in the NFL. You now have to learn how to play when the pocket is squeezed. And I think he'll get there, but I think this year has been a learning experience in that regard.
Yeah, it was interesting because when I did that Titans-Texans game, the Titans, it was very clear that was the game plan, was to try to get near his feet. Try to be around his feet.
Yeah.
Because they felt like that affected him, and it certainly did. Let's get to my game, Greg. It is the New England Patriots, who are coming off of a bye, but wow, watching them against the Colts, I was impressed by Drake May.
Yeah.
They're playing against Arizona Cardinals, who, I don't know what happened. Ever since the bye, they're not playing as well. In particular, Kyler Murray not playing as well, if you look at the turnovers.
Yeah, well, let's start with New England. I think Drake May overall has played really well, given the fact that they do not have a real good offensive line. They don't really have weapons. They have a very inconsistent run game. And I think he's played really well. You can see the physical and athletic traits. And I've said this to many people. I don't think people realize that when you're 6'4", 225, That's a trait. There's a lot of quarterbacks now that come into the league. We've accepted the fact that quarterbacks are shorter. They're not necessarily as big. That's kind of a given now with what the college game is sending to the NFL. But Drake May's 6'4", 225. He's a big man. And he's handled himself extremely well. He moves well. He's played with poise. I think he's probably thrown with better ball placement than a lot of people might thought overall, because I think there were some who thought that his ball placement was not quite what it needed to be coming out of college, but he's done a good job there. On the other side with Arizona, I think in some ways, in the way I see it, and this is all from tape, Ross, as you know, it's not a hot take. I think Kyler Murray is what he is. We talked about players developing over time or reaching a certain point and they kind of are what they are. You're dealing with a kid that has great movement ability. I mean, unbelievable movement ability. He can make plays, but just the consistency of his game from the pocket is up and down on a weekly basis. And I think the most troubling thing for coaches, and this having sat in rooms, is when you're not sure what you're going to get on a week-to-week basis. And I think that's one of the issues with Kyler Murray.
I think that is very, very fair. Very fair. And I think they were getting some consistency earlier before the bye, and that's why they were winning and everything was good. And then since then, I'll ask him this weekend. I don't know what he was looking at.
The run game. They need the run game to be the starting point of their offense, not Kyler Murray. He almost needs to be a complementary piece, and the run game with Connor, maybe get Benson involved as well, the rookie from Florida State. That really needs to be the starting point and foundation of their offense.
Let's talk Bills-Lions, Greg. And there's a lot of ways we could go here. I guess people have been asking me this, so I'll ask you. Did what the Rams do to the Bills, is there a flaw in the Bills' defense? Is that was there something you noticed that, the Bills' defense?
I thought there were a couple of things in watching that tape. Number one, they could not generate any kind of consistent pressure on Stafford. And I've always thought that the Bills did not truly have a great four-man D-line pass rush. There were occasional weeks where it worked, depending on the opponent. But I think overall, they don't really have a great four-man D-line pass rush. And they were playing a team and an offense with a quarterback that, when it's working, is very rhythmic. The other thing with the Bills is they're a high-percentage zone defense, predominantly out of a two-shell. And McVay is a master. By the way, as are the Lions with Ben Johnson, is a master at attacking and breaking down zone coverage. It's about putting defenders in conflict. It's about spacing. The route concepts do that so well, and so do the Lions. So this is going to be a very intriguing game to see how Sean McDermott and his staff respond to what happened to them last week, because this week on the road, they're playing another offense and a pass game that is so good with spacing and finding the voids and the conflicts in zone coverage.
It's funny because I go on the radio in Buffalo every week with the guys, WGR, and they said to me, was this a one-week thing, Ross, or are there legitimate concerns here? And I said, I don't know, but I know we're going to find out Sunday, because that's the way the NFL works. If there's issues, what do you think the Lions are going to do in this game? They're going to do the same thing the Rams are going to do until the Bills show they fixed it.
Right, and the Lions do that every week, no matter who they're playing. They have one of the most well-schemed offensive pass games in the league with the way they attack zone coverage. So the Lions are not necessarily going to be doing anything different from what they normally do.
Let's talk the battle for my beloved Keystone State. Eagles, Steelers. Where I live here, Greg, it's about 50-50, man. It is intense.
Not where I am, Ross.
No, definitely not. You talked about Jordan Davis. Obviously, a lot of talk this week, Greg, in Philadelphia. I've watched a bunch of breakdowns. I have not heard yours yet. I don't have an answer for why Hurts doesn't throw the ball on time in some of these route concepts. Just tell me what you've seen.
Well, we don't know what's in his head, so I can't answer that. I can't tell you why he doesn't throw it. I don't know if he's ever truly been a high-level anticipation thrower and progression reader. I know for a fact he's not. That's been validated by tape study and conversations I've had with coaches through the last couple of years. he's clearly at his best when he works outside the numbers, which does not require the same kind of window throwing, anticipation, and progression reading that you see when you watch teams like the Lions and the Rams, where Goff, Stafford, they work between the numbers. And you see from most teams, Jalen is not that kind of player. And he wasn't even in the Super Bowl year, and he's not now. So the question is, what are the workarounds? How do you work around that? And they've been able to do that this year with a top 3 offensive line, with the back who's been the best running back in the league this year, and with a defense for the most part that's been really, really good. Maybe number 1 or 2 in the league. So they've been able to work around. So the question is, when they play better teams, Pittsburgh being one of them, will Jalen Hurts have to throw the ball more? Will their pass game have to be more expansive? Can it be more expansive? That's a great question. I mean, right now, and some quarterbacks go through these stretches, Ross, even when they've been in the league. Right now, he's not seeing things with clarity right now. He's uncomfortable in the pocket. He's the elimination process and the isolation process of where to go with the ball is not registering the way it should. We'll see. I can't speak to what's going to happen Sunday or in the future. This is what the tape shows right now and where he stands. It's just not, he's not processing what he's seeing to the point where he can play with decisiveness and conviction from the pocket. That's what the tape shows right now.
You know, it's interesting. So his running was very effective and very important against Carolina.
And it always is. And the fact that he doesn't turn it over.
Yeah, and I wonder sometimes if he's being overly cautious. He throws a really nice fade ball on go routes to the outside. He's really good when he's in rhythm in an RPO.
Yes.
And he sees the read on the one read RPO and he throws it. But I almost feel like at times, Greg, having such a good offensive line almost does a disservice to him, because he can get away with not throwing the ball on time in rhythm. They give him 4 seconds.
I know.
Every other quarterback, it's like, dude, they know if they don't hit the ball by 3, they're dead.
Right.
In Philly, like you say, he's not comfortable in the pocket. I almost feel like he's overly like I don't know how to explain it, but it's like it's almost like he's overly comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not there. Well, I still have more time to just wait and try to find somebody.
Well, one of the things they do, which has been super effective, and it helps Jalen Hurts a lot, is no huddle, because they've been very, very effective with selective no huddle. And as you know, Ross, what that does is it often forces the defense to line up. They can't communicate. They can't move around as much before the snap, and it gives him clear looks, and they're able then, even in the pass game, like for instance, if it's single high, let's say they go no huddle and he sees single high, you call slant flat. Basic route concept. It's a great route against single high. You stick A.J. Brown on the slant route. Sometimes he runs after the catch for 25 yards. But even if he gets 10 yards, it's a good gain. So they've been really good with no huddle, because there's the RPO element to that as well. There's the zone read element to that as well. There's all those things that impact defense in a really positive way.
And they wear down D lines.
Correct.
And that's when Barkley usually breaks one, is because they can't rotate in during the no huddle too. Next thing you know, they're tired. He breaks one. What about Bucks Chargers is an important game, Greg?
Yeah, and it's funny. There's kind of a run game to the NFL this year. A lot of people always want to talk about Baker Mayfield, and he's had a nice year. But the Bucks, and a lot of people might not be aware of this, they're in the top 10 in rushing in the league, and they've got a really good run game. There are times they play with the pony package, where they have 2 running backs on the field. They're very multiple with their run game concepts. They've actually become a very good running football team, because their O-line is a much better run-blocking O-line than pass-protecting O-line. They're not particularly good in pass protection relative to their run blocking. So they've become a really strong running football team, and that always helps the quarterback, and it's helped Baker, and they play a lot more. They made a major change 5 games ago, Ross. Now they play heavy, relatively speaking, of course, more than 25% of their offensive snaps out of 12 personnel with 2 tight ends. Before that, they were playing heavy 11 personnel. So they made a major change beginning week 9 when they played the Chiefs. And that's now sort of a new look in their offense, but that's what they've become over the course of the season.
Greg, I'm really looking forward to the Packers and the Seahawks Sunday night.
That's a huge game.
Yeah, the Seahawks, they beat the Cardinals up front, both sides of
They
the ball.
sure did.
I'm impressed by them.
They made it. They made a change too, and again, I don't know if it's because Charbonneau was the back. I don't know if they just felt like it would help the O line. I don't know the reason, but I don't know if you got a chance to see that tape because you're doing the Cardinals game. But they really ran a ton of gap scheme this week, and they ate up the Cardinals with their gap scheme run game, which they were not doing prior to this. It was much more zone based. So again, I don't know if it's a Charbonneau thing, an O line thing, because they've had a lot of changes on their O line. Through the course of the season, but they were really effective with the gap scheme run game.
Yeah, Charbonnet was impressed. I mean, he's a big back that can move. I was impressed by him, and some of it was because they had holes. But man, he looked good. Let's get to the Monday night games. We've got the Bears and the Vikings. Obviously, always curious about the quarterbacks in this one. It feels like Darnold went through a rough patch, Greg, and then popped through the other side.
Yeah, and it's funny, even in that rough patch, I know he threw a couple of picks. I thought that some of those picks were not the way people think of Darnold. They were not picks of, oh my God, he doesn't know what he's looking at. They were either fluky or he just made a bad, inaccurate throw. But they weren't, back where people always thought, oh, Darnold doesn't know what he's looking at. They weren't like that at all. And I have to tell you, watching his tape, you can just see the comfort level in the way he plays because he is sitting in the pocket. He's waiting late in the down. The bodies get around him. It's what I just spoke about a few minutes ago with C.J. Stroud. The bodies get around him. He stands there. He delivers with people right around him, and he throws strikes. And he's very confident now in his receivers. And getting Hockenson back is big because what that does is increases their formation versatility because Hockenson can line up anywhere. So now they can do more things as opposed to when it was just Munt and Oliver at tight end. So now their offense has a more expansive feel to it, and it allows Jefferson, Addison to line up in different spots and make it more difficult for the defense to find out where they are on each play.
I don't know. Is there anything else to say about Cousins, Greg, that you didn't say last week? It was kind of just more of the same, right?
I don't think. Obviously, he's 0-8 in his last 4 games, and that's not good. And he's made a lot of bad throws. Although this week, he threw a lot of balls this week, and the first pick was really bad. And again, he's a veteran. Only he could tell you what he saw and why he threw it. I can't. It was really bad. The second one was really late in the game, and it was against cover 0, and he had to get the ball out. That was a different scenario. But I think he actually played reasonably well this week, Ross, based on the tape. I mean, he made a lot of good throws this week, a lot of good reads, and that's not going to, people might hear him say this and go, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, no, I do. That's what the tape said. But it's just that he hasn't thrown any touchdowns. And I'd love to know what's going on. I don't know the answer, but I'd love to know what's going on with Kyle Pitts. He is not a part of their pass game at all.
Check him out on social media. He's the man, at Greg Cosell. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Ross.
Gosh, Greg, I took so many notes as usual while you were talking. Here's a note for you to take. westshorehome.com/Ross, my friends, they're giving their biggest discount of the year, 25% off the entire project. Payments as low as $99 a month, or you can get interest-free with no payments, no interest until 2026. I think it's one of the coolest Christmas gifts you can get someone, or holiday gifts, a full bath remodel, or even just a new shower. You don't have to walk in and step over the tub. I'm getting to the age where I don't even like doing that anymore. Thank goodness I don't have that in my shower. Love the return on investment for the entry door. I didn't even realize it until we started talking about this new project. It's been awesome. Just visit westshorehome.com/Ross. Especially if you might ever sell your house, get those new doors. westshorehome.com/Ross. Masterclass. Absolutely love this idea because I know a lot of you are curious about sports betting, or maybe you've dipped your toes in. How about taking a class? It's called Bet Smart, Top Sports Betting Strategies. They have buddies of mine like Nick Costos, Joe Fortenbaugh that will help you to stop guessing and make smarter bets like we do on the Even Money Betting Podcast. But this is an actual class you can take, which is incredible. Masterclass always has great offers during the holidays, sometimes up to as much as 50% off. Head over to masterclass.com/Ross for this offer. That's up to 50% off at masterclass.com/Ross. Again, one more time, check it out. Seems like it's worth it to me. Masterclass.com/Ross. And remember, all sports betting involves risk, and you are responsible for complying with all sports betting laws in your jurisdiction.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross, we got a good game tonight. The Rams, they're at the 49ers. Who are you liking in this one and why?
My Thursday night football pick presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Man, they both look good on Sunday. I think I'll take the Niners because they're playing at home and just how good they looked. Although still no Bosa, still no Trent Williams. Feels like a toss-up game. It's the type of game where I like the Rams getting the points probably for the people that are so inclined, but I'm going to say that the Niners get them because the Rams got them earlier this year. So I think they split. Give me the Niners in a fun game, 27-24.
And it actually happened, Ross. Bill Belichick has agreed to become the next head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels.
So there's like 3 or 4 things that pop in my head immediately when I heard the news. Number one, very clearly, no NFL team was interested and/or Belichick did not anticipate any NFL team being interested, which is really interesting. Number two, I give him a lot of credit. I thought he just wanted to come back to the NFL to coach because he wanted to break Shula's record. This shows how much this guy loves football, how much he loves coaching football. Kudos to him for taking this job. Now, I was on a radio show in Boston a few days ago, and I said he'd pretty much be the worst college coach I can imagine. Let me just say, probably the best X's and O's schematic game planning coach I ever had. Incredible, right? But anybody that ever played for him in the pros and knows his personality and how he treated guys cannot imagine him actually recruiting or talking to donors or any of those things. That said, what I think is interesting about it is, because of the transfer portal, they might get a bunch of grad guys, 3rd, 4th, 5th year guys that want to come because of how he tells them he's going to use them in his offense or defense to get them ready for the pros. So it's going to be fascinating for sure. Other than that, let's have a great week. Picks Friday tomorrow. I think we're done here. It is the holiday season, which means it's time to hang out with family and friends. Drink Smirnoff, the world's #1 vodka and an official vodka partner of the NFL. So many opportunities this year to make football games even more delicious as you watch them. We already had Thanksgiving and Black Friday. Now we've got Christmas, these Saturday games coming up. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff #21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please do not share with anyone under legal drinking age. Smirnoff. We do game days.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. It is not too late to get someone in your life the best holiday gift, the best Christmas gift you could ever get them, and get a signed autograph from your boy, me. Myfrontpagestory.com. Just forward it to me, ross@rosstucker.com. Backofficescheduler.com, human@nyc.com.